Hey YouTubers, this is Nurse Jay at Nursing the Truth, and I hope everyone's having a great day. And as usual, you see Thoth back there giving me the inspiration to tell the truth and hopefully set some of you guys free. So we have a good show for you today. I had to open up my other phone, so that's why I'm looking down. So, you know, some time ago I was telling you about Josephus and his works. Now guys, you have to go to the library and read Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews and his complete works, okay? So he's got like 4 different types of books in his complete works by William Winston, and it will tell you an awful lot about this Jesus stuff. Now, you know, the wonderful Saul, Paul, did not have an encounter on the way to Damascus. He did not see the light. And, you know, in Acts, there's like 3 different accounts. He saw the Lord, or did he not? Did he hear the Lord? Did the people that he was with, did they see him? Did they hear? Oh, they fell down. So it's a menagerie, and it's kind of hysterical how they couldn't get it together. So, moving on. Trying to get this phone to cooperate. Anyway, so where did the biblical writers get the story about Saul, Paul? Well, I'm going to tell you, dear friends, because I don't think anyone really has talked about this besides some scholars that had written a book about this, and I did not know anything about these scholars. I was just doing my own research and came to the conclusion, and even told my husband where the biblical writers got the Saul character in the Bible. And when I started reading this, I was floored. And then about 6 months later, after the fact, I had come across a couple of scholars that had written about where they think this character came from. So anyway, Josephus reports on Saul, a Herodian aristocrat, during the Jewish rebellion of 66 to 74. Did this nasty little Saul help the author of Acts flesh out his story of the apostle? And my answer is yes. But get this, guys. This was during the Jewish rebellion. This wasn't in the 30s or 40s or 50s. It's a totally different time period. Now listen to this. This is in Josephus's books. And it says, so the men of power, perceiving that the sedition was too hard for them to subdue, and that the danger which would arise from the Romans would come upon them first of all, endeavored to save themselves, and sent ambassadors, some to Florus, the chief of which was Simon, the son of Ananus, and others to Agrippa, among whom the most eminent were Saul and Antipas and Costobarus, who were of the king's kindred. That is in the Jewish War 2 and 17. The book of Acts. Acts 8 verse 3. Saul is a powerful man. He wreaked havoc on the church, entering to every house and hauling men and women and committing them to prison. Acts 26, 1 and 2, Saul gains access to King Agrippa, and he stretched forth his hand and answered for himself, I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because I shall answer for myself this day before thee, touching all things whereof I am accused of the Jews. Romans 16:11. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simon that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. Acts 13:1. Also note Romans 16:11. Paul states, "Great Herodian, my kinsman." In Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews, 20.9.4 states, Ananias was too hard for the rest by his riches, which enabled him to gain those that were most ready to receive. Costobarus, also with Saulus, did themselves get together a multitude of wicked wretches, and this because they were of royal family, and so they obtained favor among them because of their kindred to Agrippa, but still they used violence with the people and were very ready to plunder those that were weaker than themselves. Acts 9:1 states, Saul used violence against the meek and mild Christians, and Saul yet breathing out threatening and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord. Josephus, War of the Jews, 2:20.1 states, after this calamity had befallen, Cestius, many of the most eminent of the Jews, swam away from the city, as from a ship when it was going to sink. Costobarus, therefore, and Saul, who were brethren, together with Philip, the son of Jacomus, who was the commander of King Agrippa's forces, ran away from the city and went to Cestius. Acts 9:29-30 states, and Saul flees Jerusalem because of the dangers. And he spoke boldly and disputed against the Grecians, but they went about to slay him, which when the brethren knew, they brought him down to Caesarea and sent him forth to Tarshish. War of the Jews, 2:20.2 of Josephus states, in the meantime, the people of Damascus, when they were informed of the destruction of the Romans, set about the slaughter of those Jews that were among them, and as they had already cooped up together in the gymnasium, which they had done out of the suspicion they had of them, they thought they should meet with no difficulty in the attempt, yet did they distress their own wives, which were almost all of them addicted to the Jewish religion, on which account it was that their greatest concern was how they might conceal these things from them. So they came upon the Jews, cut their throats, as being a narrow place, a number in 10,000, and all of them were unarmed, and this in 1 hour's time, without anybody to disturb them. Acts 9:22-24 states, proselytizing in Damascus leads to murder. Saul confounded the Jews which dwelt at Damascus. The Jews took counsel to kill him, and they watched the gates day and night to kill him. War of the Jews 2:20.1 states, but then how Antipas, who had been besieged with them in the king's palace, but would not fly away with them, was afterwards slain by the seditious. We shall relate hereafter how Cestius sent Saul and his friends at their desire to Achaia, to Nero, to inform him of the great distress that they were in, and to lay the blame on their kindling the war upon Florus, as hoping to alleviate his own danger by provoking his indignation against Florus. Acts 17:14-15 states, Paul and friends are sent to Achaia, which is Greece, Athens, and Corinth. And then immediately the brethren sent away Paul, and they that conducted Paul brought him unto Athens. And Paul hopes to convince Nero of his innocence. Antiquities of the Jews 29:5 states, but when Albinus heard that Gessius Florus was coming to succeed him, he was desirous to appear to do somewhat that might be grateful to the people of Jerusalem. So he brought out all those prisoners who seemed to be most plainly worthy of death and ordered them to be put to death accordingly. But as to those who had been put into prison on some trifling occasions, he took money of them and dismissed them, by which means the prisons were indeed emptied, but the country was filled with robbers. Acts 24:24 and 26 states, the procurator hopes for a bribe from the innocent apostle. Felix sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ. He hoped also that money should have been given of him of Paul, that he might loose him. Wherefore he sent for him the oftener and communed with him. You see, a lot of the church fathers took from the writings of Josephus. Not to say, my dear truth seekers, that Josephus, the dirty little rat that he was, wasn't also in this little conspiracy. Do your homework, because a lot of people say he was Piso. I do have a book called Piso Christ, where you see Gaius Calpurnius Piso was the real name of Flavius Josephus as the pen name. Playing both sides of the fence. Oh, what a wicked web we weave, dear children. And when I have read all types of books and I come across Josephus and see Saul, that was a flag, a red flag, especially in his writings. It matched the biblical story like a fine-tuned instrument. I want you to get his books. You have to get Josephus's books because it goes parallel with the Bible. I mean, it is just like, it's almost word for word what he's writing. Now, not to say that these things were written prior to, and he did take from, the people. And we do know that the temples and all that, and libraries of Alexandria are burnt and all that kind of good stuff, and people just wrote, and put a little spin on it. Now, also, too, in Josephus's books about the historical Saul, there's always a historical Saul and there is a mystical Paul. So, the real historical Saul was killed by his son. And his son couldn't take the horrid things that he had done to people. So he took out his sword and he killed Saul and the family, and then turned the sword on himself. So, you dear truth seekers, the Paul was not beheaded in Rome because there was no Paul. And the church father called Tertullian also said there is no evidence for a Paul. That's in the scriptures. Go look that up too. So your real Saul, Paul, was killed by his son. It's in Josephus' writings in the Antiquities of the Jews. So dear truth seekers, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I'm enjoying my time today bringing truth, and also my Cowboys won last night. So I'm very happy about that. And as usual, God doth, my incense going, peace and quiet in the house is my best friend. So until next time, I will see you later. Hotep, Ashe, and have a great day.